proceeding. It's not going to prejudice either party because the judge is going to be impartial, and I would be impartial as to either attorney. Blaine was right. Family division cases, people can get heated, attorneys can get heated. But the judge needs to lead by example, and there needs to be actual teeth to what his rules of the courtroom are. A perfect example right now is Judge Borkowski, who's helping the citizens of Washington County by coming down and doing criminal cases. Every morning that he takes the bench for criminal court, the first thing he says is, cell phones off. If you're going to have a conversation, take it outside. Because he wants to make sure that everybody has a fair and impartial chance to litigate their case.
All right, the next question will go first to Alan. Describe one of your more significant cases and what you believe to be the significance of the case and the nature of your participation in litigation.
My most significant case was representing a young man named Jason from Charleroi who was in the Navy, went to Iraq and Afghanistan, and when he came back, he was no longer himself. And his mother would say to me, I don't recognize him. I don't know who he is. And I would say to her, because I knew him since grade school, I don't know who he is either. My most significant case was Jason because we were fighting for VA benefits and Social Security benefits. And Jason died of an accidental overdose while he was waiting to get those benefits. And this is the biggest problem facing our courts in this state and in this county today. Our service members coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan who are ending up in the criminal justice system because they are not getting the benefits that they deserve that were guaranteed to them by this country. That is my most significant case because his elderly mother never received a dime from Social Security or VA while he waited for those benefits. And he didn't know what he was doing anymore and actually medicated himself to death. That is my most significant case of my entire career of 25 years.
Valerie.
One case that comes to mind was whenever I was an assistant district attorney. I had a case involving, it was a serious sexual assault rape case, and the victims were all sisters, very young children, and decisions had to be made as far as whether we were going to prosecute first of all. Back then, we didn't have a separate unit in the DA's office, sexual assault unit. Now they have that. They have all kinds of detectives and DAs that specialize in that. But when I was in the DA's office, everybody handled basically a variety of cases. So I had this sexual assault case and had to make a lot of serious determinations. And one was whether we were going to try to transfer it to adult court because the defendants were actually under 18. But due to the seriousness of the charges, we decided that we would. But bearing in mind that these poor girls would have to testify, they would have to go through, relate everything that happened to them, and I knew it would be difficult for young children to do that. But we made the decision to do that. We were in front of Judge Odell Senek at the time. It was very difficult because the girls, as you can imagine, once they took the stand, they were hesitant to testify. We had to take a recess, then we had to go in judge's chambers, and she did permit that testimony in her chambers to make the girls a little more comfortable. So we were able to proceed. Thank God we were successful having the girls testify to everything that happened. It was a long day, but we did accomplish that. And ultimately, the case was transferred to juvenile or to adult court, and then the defendants, I believe, pled guilty and did. I don't remember the exact amount of time, but they received some sort of significant jail sentence.
Chuck?
I would only say that I've reversed more judges in their bad decisions in higher courts than probably everybody on this panel combined. I've set more precedents in law. I've given buttonholes from all over the state of Pennsylvania. But the one case was early on out in my life when I represented a high school buddy of mine. And back in those days, and John Bell will probably remember, back in those days, the rule was the non-custodial parent would get Christmas Eve, the custodial parent always got Christmas morning. And he turned to me and he said, that means I'll never get to see my child on Christmas morning. And when he told me that, I took that up to the Superior Court. And the Superior Court reversed that judge in Washington County and said, unless you have a reason for doing that type of divergence, we have to alternate. And that started alternating Christmas Eve Christmas Day. My client was elated when that happened. The bad part of the story is the first Christmas morning he was supposed to get that child, the child got sick. He didn't see the child. So we started the following year, but that was the most precedential case that I can remember. Thank you.
Tom?
It's easy for us to talk about our successes and all the great outcomes we've had over the years. I would have to say that a case I'm working on right now, I had no idea what the outcome would be. It's one of the most moving cases that I've had. That is, I'm representing a prison guard whose shoulder was destroyed by subduing fights in prison. And he has been abandoned by the state workers' compensation system. They just have never taken his injury seriously. And as a result of his injuries, he's undergone, I think, 12 surgeries, and now has no functional use of his shoulder. And I've helped him with many of these issues, and it's ongoing. I think I've been representing him for 6 years. Recently, he had a criminal matter because he has no use of his arm and shoulder. And somebody invaded his home, and he used his weapon to defend himself, and ended up being charged and spending time in jail until he got it all straightened out. And this gentleman is so honored and so respectful. Every time he calls me, he calls me Mr. Fallon. Despite 6 years of telling him to call me Tom. And I think it's a case that will always be one of my most significant cases. He's far more doing a good job.
I'm in a dilemma here. I have a new question, but it's just been very interesting to hear all of your different experiences. So let's move on and with the same question, describe one of your more significant cases and what you believe to be the significance of the case and your participation.
Well, at the outset, let me say this, that I think every case is a significant case. And especially if you're going to be a judge, you have to realize that when those litigants come into the courtroom, that is their most significant case. In terms of my experience and the definition that's been given, there was a case several years ago. It was a homicide that occurred in 2005. I obtained a first-degree murder conviction here in 2007. The case went up to the Superior Court where the conviction was reversed. And I believe that on the basis of the record evidence, the Superior Court had not properly read the record. I then sought reconsideration from the Superior Court, and they gave en banc reconsideration. And en banc means that they have 9 judges sit and re-examine what their initial panel did. I was pleased to say that in the fall of 2011, the Superior Court en banc, which included judges that sat on the initial panel that reversed the conviction, restored that conviction, that individual remained serving life. That case set precedent with regard to the marital privilege and why a bigamist does not have the right to have a conversation he has with a wife declared privileged, especially when he's talking about the brutal murder of another individual. So that was one of the most significant because it was one where it took going back and convincing those who said we got it wrong to convince them they got it wrong.
Blaine?
Sitting here trying to think of interesting cases I've had over the years. I represented a woman from McKeesport charged with murdering her husband, where she claimed she shot him because she was abused, shot him numerous times, and when we interviewed the children, who all flew in from Detroit, they said, oh no, our mother wasn't the one that was abused, she abused our father. That was the Vera Drew case out of McKeesport. I represented Galvin Gardner, a union official from Allenport who resigned and then rescinded his resignation, and the United Steelworkers sent in high-powered Frank Lucchino, who became famous Allegheny County judge, to